Well, in just a few days, the state of Florida is expected to execute a 64-year-old man who's been diagnosed by mental health experts as a paranoid schizophrenic. John Errol Ferguson believes that he is the, quote, Prince of God and that he can speak with his dead father. Ferguson is scheduled for lethal injection as the result of his role in a 1977 mass murder in Miami-Dade County. And despite being part of a group that killed 6 people, execution style, Ferguson has a legal team arguing that his execution would be cruel and unusual punishment. This is all outlined in a new article for Truth Out, written by journalist Rania Khalek. Rania joins me now from Fairfax, Virginia, to break this all down. Rania, give us the nuts and bolts of this story here.
Well, as you said, John Ferguson has been diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic, and Florida is planning on executing him next week. His lawyers are arguing, his lawyers are pointing to 2 Supreme Court cases that have basically prohibited the execution of the mentally ill if they don't understand the rationale behind their execution. In John Ferguson's case, Florida is arguing that he's not mentally ill. In fact, they're saying that he's faking his mental illness. Now, the problem with that is that in the past, Florida's own court-appointed psychiatrists have not only diagnosed Ferguson as a paranoid schizophrenic, but before the crime in question was committed in 1977, John Ferguson was in the care of Florida's mental health facilities, and court-appointed psychiatrists basically were warning the courts. They were saying, do not release this man. He's not only a paranoid schizophrenic, he has no understanding whatsoever of the difference between right and wrong, and he's dangerous to both himself and others. The state didn't take that advice. They ignored it, and they released John Ferguson in 1976, and less than a year later is when he committed these crimes. And over the last 4 decades, court-appointed psychiatrists have basically changed their tune. If it's a high-stakes time, like during the trial was the first time that the psychiatrists were saying, okay, maybe he's faking his mental illness, because it was a high-stakes trial, right? This was a very sensationalist crime.
But how can you be faking a mental illness? I mean, this is not something that's been, investigated for the last month. This has been, like you said, nearly 4 decades, of people, mental health experts, going in, talking to this man, evaluating him.
Well, yeah, you're right. They're actually the man who literally wrote the book about faking mental illness, what they call malingering. He actually came and examined John Ferguson in person, did a comprehensive examination, and his conclusion was that this man is in no way faking his mental illness. That's what the prosecution's arguing, and it's kind of outrageous, specifically because this man he's almost borderline mentally retarded. And to say that he's been faking is to say that for the past 4 decades he's been able to outsmart several psychiatrists throughout the state of Florida.
But Rania, a lot of people would look at this case and they'd say, you know what, despite his mental state, Ferguson has been convicted of killing people. What do you think? I mean, would a true vision of justice be putting him to death or letting him live?
Well, the problem is, and the Supreme Court has pointed this out in a past case, is that when it comes to someone's understanding of why they're being put to death, it's really important that they understand that it's because of the crime they committed. That's the whole point and purpose of our justice system, right, is what we call retributive justice. So if somebody like John Ferguson thinks that they're being put to death in his case, he believes it's a conspiracy by the state to because he's the Prince of God, and the state wants to kill him, right? So he doesn't believe it has anything to do with his crimes, and the whole purpose of killing him doesn't make any sense, for those at least who believe in that the death penalty is a way to deter others from doing it. So that's the problem with that.
Rania, today is World Day Against the Death Penalty. It's another reason we wanted to bring this story to our audience. Talk a little bit about Ferguson in the context of other death penalty cases in the United States.
Well, it's interesting because over the summer there were several other cases of individuals who were either mentally ill or were mentally disabled. Who in Texas, I believe there were several. In Georgia, there was one man specifically who was mentally disabled, and despite multiple Supreme Court rulings saying that it's unconstitutional to put someone to death who is mentally disabled or mentally ill, states around the country have been arguing for it. They've been trying to go against the advice of mental health professionals. They've been trying to come up with their own processes for making sure that these people are still put to death. And it's really a shame because these people are not in their right minds and they don't understand what's happening around them. And it's morally and both, it's just morally wrong, in my opinion and many other people's opinion.
I think it's really interesting when you talk about some of these cases. There are rules in place, but so often, Rania, as we're seeing here, and as we saw in another case, these rules are often broken. Just last week, we heard about a case also in Florida involving a 13-year-old being tried as an adult. His name is Christian Fernandez. He's charged with killing his 2-year-old half-brother. He was 12 at the time of David's death, and he will be prosecuted as an adult. Why do we have rules if they can just be broken?
Well, I think the problem is that we, as a society in America, we have this mentality of punishment where, we don't want to understand why a crime was committed. We don't want to understand the reasons that led up to it. And this is not to justify crimes or murders or heinous acts like what John Ferguson did, but it's just to say that it's just our entire process is this process where punishment is really more of like a revenge than anything else. And also, we do have rules in place, but most cases, the prosecution, prosecutors around the country and judges around the country are often on the side of what they'll say is the victims. So they want these people to be punished. And a lot of times they come up with loopholes to flout the rules or to not follow them at all. And that's an issue. And when it comes to the death penalty specifically, death penalty is something that you can't take back. When you kill somebody, they're gone.
Right.
So that's why it's really important that these rules be followed so that we give people due process and we treat them the way they deserve to be treated.
Yeah, certainly a lot of questions regarding that case. Of course, most people remember Troy Davis. Just back to the Ferguson case for 1 second, Rania. October 16th is the date that he's scheduled to be put to death. Is there anything else that could happen between now and then that would prevent it?
Yeah, so his defense team is right now doing a couple different things. They have appealed a finding by a commission that Governor Rick Scott put together, which said that that Ferguson is competent for execution. They've appealed that decision, and so yesterday and continuing today, there's a competency hearing, basically an evidentiary hearing, to put forth sort of all the mental health records and to and a judge will basically decide whether, based on Ferguson's history and all the evidence, whether he is in fact competent or not for execution.
All right, Rania, I'm so sorry. We are out of time. Thanks so much, though. This is a really interesting article. Independent journalist Rania Khalek.